Welcome to Just Start, Get Visible, your go-to resource of the journey to becoming more visible in a way that feels right for you. Hey there, and welcome back to yet another episode of Just Start, Get Visible. It's Jacqueline here, and today we're on episode number 248. 248. And it's a somewhat serious subject. I know that I'm sitting here pointing and dancing and body rolling, but this is like a little bit of a heavy title. I don't even know if I should have picked as heavy as a title of this, but this is it. It's about being courageous. It is truly about the courage to just start. Because while I know that just start rolls off my tongue a lot, while I have surrounded my life with just start principles and approaches and all the things because that's how I choose to live, honestly, starting something takes courage. It really does. Because if we just decide to stay on the path of whatever it was that we're doing before, we've maybe settled into comfort, what feels like air quotes security, when nothing's really secure. All right, it's not as secure as we think that it is. To step out and to do something else is truly courageous. However, it's well worth the experience. You're worth the experience. You're worth going down the path of deciding, is this something that I feel strongly about, or have I acquired some information as a result of giving myself courage to start that I'm going to use in other ways? And so we're going to talk today about the courage to start and how there are three things that I want you to keep in mind if you are thinking of being courageous in starting, restarting, jump starting, starting again, because truly starting does require courage. Okay. All of this month's episodes are babies, if you will, or grandbabies, if you will, of episode number 245. If you head back to jacquelineandbaker.com/245, I had a dynamic conversation with Dallas Gordon. Dallas Gordon has lived many lives. That's literally what the title is of that particular episode. And we have such a rich, meaningful conversation that the rest of the episodes for the month of February are all rooted in pulling apart some of that great learning that we had so that we're not just quickly moving on to the next thing, which is such a thing, right? We look up and half of February is gone. We look up and half of the year is gone because we've quickly moved on. So I want to fight back just a little bit. I want to fight back to live in good content and good experiences and good conversations just a little bit more. And so today, which is all rooted in the courage to start, we're going to go through some supporting approaches, if you will, some supporting tips, tools, and even some storytelling that will help you be courageous as you figure out what to start, what to start next, what to restart, or even what to share with somebody else. Because maybe you're thinking, I don't really want to start anything else, but my brother needs to hear this. He needs to be courageous. Or my girlfriend, or my wife, my partner, my sister, my son, my daughter, they need to be courageous, and they can be courageous, but perhaps they need just a little bit of extra, some incentives, some tips, tools, research, and here we go. All right. The first thing that I want you to keep in mind as it relates to being courageous and the courage to start is that you can start over more than once. It is fascinating how we feel much more tied to things, situations, than we really are. All right. Now, I'm not saying go out and make a bunch of commitments and then just, totally bail on these. I'm not saying that at all. But there are some things in our life, some ties, some things that we keep doing over and over again that perhaps just aren't serving us very well. And we can start over. We can say, you know what? Maybe I've seen this thing all the way through, and now I can start over again. You can give yourself permission to start. And many times it is a choice. It is not like something that's saying, oh, no, you can't. I was joking around with somebody recently, one of my good girlfriends who came to visit last month. And we were joking that like literally I could go get my passport out the drawer and be in a whole different country like this evening if I wanted to. Am I going to do that? Probably not. However, I could. Like there's so many more things that we have access and have permission to do if we just give ourselves the leeway and the permission to do them. Okay. So you can start over and you can do it more than once. My conversation with Dallas Gordon back in episode number 245 was such a lesson in that. And she had gone from being a baker to a stationary entrepreneur, subscription box person, a coach, all these other lives. She did a little bit of singing in her life. All these other lives that she had lived allowed her to have many beginnings, right? And allow her to experience things that maybe she didn't even imagine experiencing. And so, yes, you can start over more than once and you can have new beginnings if we give ourselves permission to. All right. Also, know that starting over or starting from scratch isn't necessarily failure, it just might be a strategy. Okay. I can't help but think of the many times that at Scarlet, where of course we focus on etiquette and leadership, where we work with leaders who might be in transition at an organization, ready to give themselves permission to start to lead other people or lead bigger departments or be an executive. And in many of these instances, these are folks that have been pretty successful in their career. They have risen to certain heights, levels, but perhaps they haven't been visible. Perhaps they're like, ooh, you know what? I've sort of been hiding out because I've just been hiding out. And they realize that, oh, because I have been hiding out, nobody knows who I am or nobody knows me as well as they should. My opportunities aren't as vast as they could be because people don't know who I am. They don't even know to invite me to be a part of a community or a paid board. They don't even know to want me to be a part of some committee or think tank or whatever, or to even speak on stages because they don't know who I am. And so there comes this point where lots of leaders that we work with are like, okay, you know what? I want to start at least being visible on like a LinkedIn or just somewhere where people can see who I am and what I'm about. And there's this guilt that a lot of people have with, oh my gosh, like I don't have anything that I have been posting or sharing. It's not that they're not smart, they have expertise, but they're feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm starting from scratch. And here's the thing I'll tell you. If I think about all the spaces I've been in, the many email addresses I've had, the social profiles that I've had, the blogs that we've had, the videos, there's a ton of stuff that we have created for me, for my brands. And I'm not saying it's messy, but it's just a lot of information over the years that to me feels like, whew, I couldn't unwind out of all this stuff if I really wanted to. Versus this other person that almost feels like a fresh new situation, like a fresh new baby, like brand new opportunities as it relates to like timelines and posting and whatnot. And so there should not be any fear, or I will say that I encourage you to work to lessen your fear because I don't think that it's fair for me to say there shouldn't be any fear because if you're fearful or you're nervous about something, you are. That doesn't mean that you aren't going to do it anyway. But if you are, you are. But starting from scratch isn't failure, it's a strategy. Or even if you've started something, right? Take me, for example, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start something else. Okay, me starting from scratch with maybe a clean slate with a certain profile or a certain timeline, it's not failure. It's a strategy. It's like, okay, I can't mix this all in with this other stuff because then the end user is going to be confused. People are going to wonder if I'm talking to them, whatever. So it's not a failure. It could just possibly be a strategy, the way in which you're approaching things, the way in which you decide to go about things because perhaps it's cleaner. But more importantly, even if you are starting from scratch, because you realize that the thing that you were doing previously didn't serve you well, maybe it felt like a failure, maybe you were asked to leave that space, guess what you come with? You still come with learnings. You still come with a level of knowledge, even a level of expertise, quite frankly, that will help you to build whatever it is that you're working on faster, stronger, better, etc. So starting from scratch isn't a failure, it's a strategy. And third, know this as it relates to starting over more than once. Navigating fear, uncertainty, imposter syndrome, self doubt all make you one thing: human. Because if you remember just a couple minutes ago when I said you shouldn't be afraid, you heard me quickly correct myself. It's not about what you should or shouldn't be. If you're nervous, you're nervous. If you're feeling uncertain, you're feeling uncertain. If you're feeling fearful, you're feeling fearful. But just because those things are a feeling doesn't mean that you still can't make another decision. I say often on this podcast, and I will continue to say it as long as I can, that there are tons of spaces that I am in that I am nervous. I have some anxious feelings and anxious thoughts, right? However, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to take action. I was just on a stage a few weeks ago with hundreds of people in the audience. A subject I really love to talk about: leadership legacy, succession, right? Building strong teams, topics that I talk about all the time. And yes, there was some level of nervousness that still existed in my being, and I have been on stages for decades. However, the presence of these things, the presence of these indicators of me being human, doesn't mean that I'm not going to still do the thing, whatever it is. Okay, I feel a little butterfly in my stomach when I'm about to go on stage. Okay, I feel you there, butterfly, but we're going to go on stage. Like, we're still going to go. So I want you to know that navigating fear, uncertainty, and imposter syndrome, it just makes you a human, but we still have a choice. And I get it for some people who might be thinking, but Jacqueline, sometimes it is debilitating. It is mind numbing. I get it. It does take practice. It takes you putting some things in your toolkit that works for you. However, you never put one tool in your toolkit if you don't give yourself permission to push forward and push forward and push forward again. Because, yes, while there are butterflies there, right, I've built up enough arsenal where I can talk back to that feeling enough for me to be able to get up on stage, right? And even when I'm there, it still is there, but over time, it's like the feeling just gives up. It's just like, oh, okay, she's gonna do it. She went up on the stage. We didn't stop her, and it's just like, well, I guess we'll go. Guess we'll get out of here now because she's talking. She beat us again. All right. So give yourself permission to take that step and develop up that arsenal of confidence along the way. Right? So starting over more than once doesn't make you a bad person, right? It's a choice that you can make, and you can give yourself permission to do so. Okay. Now, as we think about courage, right, all of this entire episode is rooted in the courage to just start, because sometimes starting, or the concept of starting, the permission we need to give ourselves to start, doesn't feel easy, because sometimes it's not. However, in addition to knowing that you can start over more than once, you also should know that there's the opportunity for you to take the first step when you don't know the first 10, right? Because a lot of times we're like, oh my gosh, I can't start. I can't be courageous in starting because I don't know what to do in 6 years. You don't need to know what to do in 6 years. You need to know what to do in 60 minutes, right? In 6 days, right? In 7 days. And then you eventually work yourself up to 10 days and 20 days, okay? The first thing I encourage you to do in trying to get past, like, I don't know what to do in 10 days, is break down the overwhelm. Break down overwhelm paralysis is what we call it, right? Where you are trying to get this task done. This may be just one thing, right? However, you're not working on the task at hand. You're working on a task that leads to another task that leads to another task. When in fact, for this particular task, what are the steps that are required to get this one done? Not the next one, not the next one, not the next one. Because a lot of times we're trying to solve for something that's not even an issue yet. One thing that often gets me through even today, when I feel like, when I have a big plan and I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's this plan I'm trying to execute, but it's so humongous, right? Is, Jacqueline, worry about what you have to worry about when you have to worry about it. And this is coming from a planner, like somebody who is usually thinking 3, 6, 9, 20 steps ahead, because I used to be a wedding and event planner. And we have to think in that way. Like, what if this person trips? What if this vendor doesn't show up? Like, the show must still go on. So how far ahead have I thought in order to stave off any tragedies? And yes, it is necessary to plan, but to a point, right? Not so far that it's like, oh my gosh, in 5 years, what does that even look like? When in fact, I don't know what the next 5 minutes looks like. I don't know what the next 15 minutes looks like. So break it down. What is it that you're truly working on, and what needs to be solved for right now? And then what needs to be solved on later on? Because it helps you to break down this feeling of overwhelm. Second is what to do in your first 30 days. Let's just say if you have a new idea, love it. We'll love to hear about it. Send me an email at info@jacquelinemmbaker.com. And think about your next 30 days. Okay. And while, yes, I do want you to solve challenges as they come up, I want you to have a plan of what you plan to work on for the next 30 days. Not necessarily that you have to solve, but hey, over the next 30 days, this is sort of kind of on my roadmap of things that I'm going to be thinking about, going to be working on. All right. And the reason why I ask you to do that is because it also limits how much advanced thinking you're doing. If you're thinking about what does it look like in 6 years, should you really be thinking that far ahead? So I want you to break down the things you have to work on. But 30 days is this good window, this good period of time where you feel like, okay, I have something in front of me that I'm working towards, but not so far ahead that it's like 6 years, 60 years, right? It also helps you to get rid of this overwhelm paralysis, right? Where it's not like, oh my gosh, I have so much to solve for it. There's always so much to solve for. I've been in business for a very long time. There's always something to figure out, always something to solve for. However, what do you plan on looking at for the next 30 days? And how can you break that down so that it's something that's digestible? And third is this one as it relates to how to solve or how to take the first step when you don't know, the next 10, the next 20, etc. is decision making. Okay. How are you going to make decisions? Now, this is a very personal thing, a personal journey that I encourage you to go down because the way that you solve for things, the way that you make decisions might be significantly different from how I make decisions. Meaning that for me, because I've experienced in starting stuff and executing things, facilitating things, I don't have to have 100% of the information in order to make a decision. However, you might. And it may be a matter of you building up confidence, right? Building up courage to be able to get to the point where it's like, okay, I know 70% of the information. And so I can make this decision and confidently move forward. Okay. However, we all have different personalities. You operate differently from me than I operate from you. And the way in which we make decisions is different depending on where we're at on our journey. However, what I want you to do is decide how are you going to make decisions based on where you're at right now. This is going to change over time. Over time, you may decide, I can move differently now. I'm more confident. But right now, how do you decide? What are the things that I have to know, the information that I have to make decisions? The reason why this is important is because it allows you to get out of perfection mode where you're just like, oh my gosh, I got to have this, and this, and this. Do you? Or did you decide that for this phase of where I'm at right now, first 30 days, first 60 days, whatever it is, that my decision making process is X? I got to have a piece from this, a piece from this. Maybe you have somebody else you're starting something with, and I run it by them. And that's how we make decisions. So, whatever your decision making process is, to decide on that and let that evolve over time. Okay. So there are lots of things that you can do to make the first step, especially when you don't know the next 10 or 20. But breaking down overwhelm, particularly overwhelm paralysis, breaking things down into bite sized chunks for completion. Also, making sure that you're clear about over the next 30 days. Maybe you decide to extend it to 60 days, whatever. It was some finite amount of time over the next period of time. Like this is how, or this is what I'm going to be working on. And third is decision making. How do I actually make decisions overall? Okay. The last section that I want you to keep in mind as it relates to being courageous and starting is this notion of momentum, even this notion of magic, right? But more importantly, this notion of consistent action. A lot of times we conflate or we falsely and maybe positively accuse consistent action as like momentum and more, maybe even more elusive magic. Wow, that was magic. And it wasn't magic, right? It literally was consistency. I can think about lots of people that reach out to me and say, oh my God, Jacqueline, like you've been here, you've been there, you've been there. And it feels like you're constantly visible. And I'm like, I actually feel like I'm not as visible as I should be, right? Or as I used to be. But it literally is the result of consistent action, like showing up in spaces in a consistent way, showing up for the podcast in a consistent way, newsletter in a consistent way. And it feels like, man, like you've got some magic going there. And it's not magic, right? It's just literally consistency. All right. So here is how I want you to leverage momentum, magic, but really just the power of consistent action. First is clarity in what you're doing comes from movement. Embrace this statement that I often will spew out in rooms that I'm in, whether I'm teaching etiquette, leadership, helping people start the things that they want to do, helping startups get unstuck, whatever it is. I will say without fail that so many of your questions will get answered in the action. Not this contemplation, this overthinking, this overassessment, this planning. It's literally movement. Putting one foot in front of the other and saying, okay, I did this, I learned this, okay, take this from it, move on. I did this, I learned this, okay, take this from it, move on. Clarity comes from movement. It comes from taking action. It comes from doing. and then applying what you learn and keeping it moving. Not contemplation. You're thinking about the same things that you have insight into. Like you haven't given yourself any new data points, any new information to be able to make different decisions. You're contemplating the stuff that is already in there. It's like trying to make cookies and you don't have all the right ingredients and you just keep stirring. Like that's not gonna work. Is peanut butter in there? Is flour in there? You just stirring sugar. That doesn't make peanut butter. I totally just made that analogy up, and that's a really good one. Okay, I'm gonna use that one somewhere else. But you literally have to move in order for clarity to come. So clarity comes from movement, not just contemplation and overthinking. Okay. I remember the conversation that I had with Dallas, episode number 245, and we talked pretty substantially about her stationery business, right? And her stationery business, she said, taught her so much about follow through, right? Follow through, making things happen, taking action overall. And what I'm encouraging you to do is remember that follow through, taking action, movement helps you to reveal things that you didn't know before, to ultimately maybe even allow you to learn some stuff, siphon those skills, and maybe apply them to something that you even want to start in the future. So remember that follow through and movement can be your friend, but you can't just wish it. It literally takes movement and action. And third, as it relates to momentum, magic, and the power of consistent action, momentum, it builds these little wins, these little micro wins that ultimately ladder up to big wins and bigger wins and bigger wins. I really do thought social, with all its greatness, with all the greatness of social media, there's also this just right, of social that just makes you feel like I'm not doing enough. I am not posting enough. I'm not blah blahing enough. I'm not doing any of this stuff enough, right? However, the bigger problem with it is that it almost makes you feel like these little things that you're doing aren't really amounting to anything, and it's just completely untrue, right? Because you are able to build momentum by these small little items. It's amazing too, like the people who I know, several people that I know who are hugely successful, hugely influential in their random spaces, right? Hugely people that I enjoy being around and I am influenced by in the most positive ways, aren't people that are making these huge sweeping things all the time, but they are quietly putting deposits in, quietly making things happen. And sometimes in a small, air quotes, way. But these small little things, right? These small little micro wins are ultimately leading towards like huge momentum. And the things that they ultimately want to be known for, they ultimately want to be connected with, the impact that they really want to make. And so know that even if your things aren't resulting in viral things, big splashes, your small steps, right? And I'm saying small, not because it's mediocre steps, but because we often feel like these are just super tiny things. These small, sometimes what seemingly is small and insignificant steps, they are micro wins, and perhaps we should reframe them as such. They're not just these things that aren't important, they are micro wins that are leading towards maybe a bigger win if they want them to be that. Okay. So as we're thinking about courage, and as I come here every week and give you tips, tools, research, storytelling to start, I want you to know that I'm aware that starting does take courage. However, you have some things to keep in mind so that you can be courageous and truly start the things that you want to do. And knowing that, number one, starting over more than once, you can do it. Are you holding yourself back? Are you telling yourself the stories around like I can't do that. I can't start over. Second is there's a possibility for you to take the first step even when you don't know the next 10. You don't have to know the next 10 steps in order to take the first step. And lastly, I really want you to be clear in that momentum and magic and the power of consistent action is truly, they're all intertwined. And you have the opportunity to have these micro wins that can serve you very well, that can lead to much bigger wins. Listen, it has been a fantastic month of February. We started out with a dynamic conversation with Dallas Gordon. If you missed that episode, head over to jacquelineandbaker.com/245 to watch the episode. And every one of our episodes during the month of February are all video because I want you to be able to see me and see how dramatic I'm being, throwing a couple body rolls in here and there, but all in service of giving you permission to start the things that you want to do and get visible in a way that feels right for you. Next month, March, is a fantastic month. We kick off with a really dynamic conversation about getting visible, but in a way for real that connects with who you are. I'm having a great conversation to kick off the month, followed by 3 more in depth conversations with just me. So I guess it's just a dialogue, a monologue, you and me here together, all extracting from the conversation that we have at the top with our wonderful guests. And I'll reveal that at the very top of March. So, with that, listen, wherever you're at in the world, I hope that you're safe. I hope that you're healthy and I hope that you're well. And I certainly hope that you're giving yourself permission to start the things that you want to do and get visible in a way that feels right for you. Don't be shy. If there's a topic you want us to cover or you have some feedback, input, something that you learned that you're just like, wait a minute, Jacqueline, that got me there. Just send me an email at info@jacquelineandbaker.com or just drop a comment. Drop a comment right here. I love to hear from you. So with that, take care of yourself and I'll see you again soon. Ciao.